Hello, everyone. Welcome to Soul Prism Podcast, where we share bite-sized nuggets of wisdom from your body, mind, and soul to serve you, the emerging soulpreneur. My name is Tammy Mack, and I'm really excited today. I'm actually really excited today. I've got Jazz here. And Jazz is a former psychotherapist turned human design soul guide and EFT tapping success coach. She hosts the podcast Sensitive, Spiritual, and Successful, and also hosted her very first Ultimate Human Design Summit, which I was in. Jazz is passionate in helping sensitive yet ambitious women bridge the gap from where they are to where they want to be. With her compassionate approach and knowledge in human behavior and counseling psychology, she works with sensitive women to release subconscious blocks that keep them stuck from reaching their next level. Not just get you right here. She believes that authenticity is key and owning natural gifts and talents is vital in finding true fulfillment that burns from within. Welcome, Jazz. I am so lit up about this conversation today. First off, I want to congratulate you on the epic Ultimate Human Design Summit. It was a huge success. It was absolutely amazing. And I just want to take a moment and congratulate you on that. And it's been a few days since the launch. I'm curious, how do you feel?
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you for being a part of it. Thank you for that introduction. And thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here. So I'm kind of blown away, honestly. I did not expect this is my very first summit, not even just the first Ultimate Human Design Summit, first summit ever. Okay. So the speakers that agreed to be a part of the summit, the whole process, like I felt like it could have been a lot more daunting than, when you think about hosting a summit and all the things. But I actually didn't receive a lot of emails of like, this isn't working. I kind of thought in my head, oh my gosh, what did I do? Because now there's like hundreds and hundreds of people signed up and it's just me. I really just did it by myself. And I was kind of nervous about like tech and all of that stuff, but everyone has been so kind. Everyone has been amazing. The feedback's amazing. The tech stuff worked well. So I've kind of shocked myself. I'm so proud of myself for actually building something and it being complete. Now I feel like I'm at this place where I'm excited, like I can rest, but the defined will center, right? You like work, and then it's like, it's got to rest. So I feel like I'm ready to rest, but I'm also so excited because of everything that everyone that I've connected with, collaborated with. Like I'm here speaking to you now. Like I interviewed you as a speaker and now, the invitation to come on here. It's just like everything has just been amazing. I'm blown away.
Oh, I just absolutely love hearing success stories that feel good. Like not once did you say I'm so burnt out, not once did you say I'm so overwhelmed, right? That's so amazing. Tell us, what is your human design type and your profile?
Yes, of course. So I am a 3-5 emotional generator. I'm a right angle cross of planning. And when I look at my top, 4 gates and the enthusiasm, the gate 16 and the gate 9 of focus, when I was doing this summit, planning this summit, I have never tapped into my gate 9 energy so much. Like I knew exactly what to focus on, like do this step next and this step next. And I felt so lit up. My husband was like, I could literally leave you here for like 8, 9, 10 hours and you would have gotten so much done. You wouldn't have been like on your phone doing this and that. Like I was just so dialed in. And I think that gave me so much energy because every night I would go to bed and I wake up excited to like do it again. And I'm also, a work from home mom. My kids are home with me most of the time, or with me and my husband most of the time. But like being able to juggle that's what I've always dreamed of, to have fulfillment in my work and not be burnt out and still have enough energy for my kids and like my mental and emotional capacity. I've always said this is what I wanted to work towards. And I was living it, like even working and with my kids. And I was like, wow, I've dreamt of this day.
But you're not just a summit creatrix. You're not just a summit queen, right? You are so
Yes.
much more than a summit queen. And I would love to hear about your experience moving into human design from being a psychotherapist and moving from the mental health, part into human design, human behavior, and what you're moving towards now.
Yes. So moving from being a psychotherapist, once I found human design, I kind of always wanted to bring that into my work. But it was kind of hard because when you're under a license or, regulated by a college, you have to report to them and people can report you for doing, I just felt like I was contained in a box. So I had a really hard time letting go of that identity because I worked so hard for it. And I was 2 years into a doctorate of psychotherapy and counseling, like a doctor of psychotherapy and counseling. And I quit that with 1 year left. And I thought, I think I'm just going to go all in on this human design stuff because the pattern I saw in my work and the clients that I called in. So my psychotherapy practice was for, I would say in my Psychology Today ad, sensitive women or empaths, highly sensitive women. And so I would call them in, and I think I did a really good job. Um, you know, there's certain things like with trauma, emotional neglect, things like that, that I can help people through. But the one thing that really like stood out to me when I would do this work with people for months or years or whatever, they would tell me, Jazz, I've never felt more authentic ever. Like I can actually stand in my authenticity. I can actually hold boundaries. I feel more like myself. Like you helped me find me. And then they started to say, I want to start a business. I want to write a book. I want to, like just all of these dreams started coming out and I'm like, let's go. And I started getting lit up by it. So I could help them through the healing. And then I saw that the natural journey was listening to their soul, listening to what their soul wanted. And so I would help them through that. And so I watched these women flourish, healing pain and turning it into their potential. Right. And so that's kind of, I saw, okay, I kind of want to focus on that because, I have kids at home. I can't be helping people process a lot of trauma. Like my whole client load can't be clients with trauma. And then I have to come home and have enough mental and emotional capacity for my two kids, right? They're 4 and 2. And I'm having another one in October. So or end of September, I think that's when she'll be born, but due date's in October. But yeah, like I just had to start thinking about switching gears because I needed to do something that fulfilled me. And I also want my kids to see me chase my dreams because I was always somebody who dreamt really big. And this is why I'm so passionate about helping people bridge the gap between where they are to where they want to be, because I always dreamt about where I wanted to be. Like I knew that this is where I was. I'm like, okay, I should be happy with what I have. And it's not to say that I wasn't, but I saw myself like being able to share my voice and I don't know, like do interviews like this and really put myself out there. I'm a 5 line, right? And when I read about that, I was like, ooh, that's scary. That's not me. I can't do that, like impacting all these strangers and stuff. I was so used to the one-on-one. And so I had to do a lot of deconditioning on like being able to put myself out there. I hope anyone listening to this, when I used to speak into a camera or an interview, my voice would shake. I would be sweating. Like I was not prepared. Even though I had this big dream, I had to work so much to get to where I wanted to be. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about it. But yeah, so I started my journey psychotherapist. I saw this pattern and I was lit up by it. And I said, I'm going to do that. I'm going to burn down everything literally, because when I found human design, it was like, as a generator, your not self theme is frustration. I'm like, oh crap. Like I am very frustrated. I don't know what to do next, right? Like, do I quit? Do I keep going? I'm so close. And so I just wrote down everything that frustrated me. And I started knocking them off. I worked for the university. I was doing my doctorate. I was just like, I don't want to sit in meetings I don't care about. I don't want to, I don't really want to do this doctorate. I have my 2 kids at home. I can always go back to it. I said, I don't really want to be registered as a psychotherapist. I just want to, help women in a different capacity. And so that was my journey. I slowly had to break away from that. And that journey to break away was hard because I disappointed a lot of people. Like I felt like I was doing something wrong the whole time. Other than my husband being like, you're fine. This is what you want to do. I've never seen you happier to just like start moving towards this. And even though it's not paying off yet, I know that it will. So he kind of rode the journey with me. But like my parents, I'm a daughter of refugees. They're like, excuse me, you're not finishing your doctorate. Your brother's a dentist. You're not, like, what are you doing with your life? So I felt it was hard. It was really hard. But it's worth it now. Now they see, I'm writing a book, putting myself out there. I'm doing things that I said that I would be doing. They just couldn't see it yet. And so now they're kind of on board, but it was hard, but I'm happy to be here.
Let's talk about tapping because I'm a quantum alignment practitioner and we use tapping with human design. We use a different subtle body therapies such as tapping, essential oil, or sorry, flower essences, and sound frequencies to work on the subtle body. I want to bring in a little bit of tapping a little bit. So I'm curious, did you ever have any resistance with tapping or like, ugh, this doesn't work? Or any clients that say, ugh, tapping, that doesn't really work. And then their minds were blown through the process?
I think not so much my clients. So for myself, I had to experiment first before I really started to like, dive into training and use it in my clinical practice. Cause I was like, okay, let me just see. And then I'm like, okay, I see a little bit of a difference here. So then I started bringing it into my practice because then I could stand behind it. In terms of my clients, I would just gently say like, did you want to try this? And they were just how quickly and rapidly it worked for people. They were like, oh, this is crazy. I think the resistance was my husband. So I love to share, with the people around me who will want to listen. I know it's a 5-line thing. So I try not to push it too much on him, but I'm like, this is amazing. And at first he's like, I don't know. And then I read him the research because that's what I was researching in my doctorate, like EFT tapping. And so he started to like, oh, okay. And then we started to do it every night together. And he started to seeing some shifts, but his conscious mind was like, okay, are we done now? Are we done now? And then I could see him shifting. He works as a firefighter, so he could process certain things and like work through whatever. And now he loves using it. He just does like tapping while he's thinking about things. He doesn't actually go through the whole process. In my interview that I did on my podcast with Dr. Peta Stapleton, she had talked about that when you're like venting, you could just like tap. And so, of course, I'm like, see, what you're doing is working. You need to do more of that. So now he does that to help himself. So there was resistance. Not my clients. They're great. It was my husband.
And isn't it so much fun when you do work with those clients? Like, I've had, like, I mentor, and there's been a few times where people are like, oh, like, I don't really get it, or, this isn't what I thought it was going to be, or this doesn't really work. And like, part of tapping with another person is the fact that we get to study human behavior. Like, as you say, you studied human behavior. I'm a lifelong studier of human behavior, and so you can start seeing the subtleties of the other person, like, whether they're burping or yawning or crying or all of a sudden pulling away or grasping at different stories, or when they become disembodied or whatnot. And I love the subtleties as a practitioner that we get to witness, that we get to see, and working towards that, and not always the stories that they're saying or the words that they're saying or the programming that they're always saying, but it's watching the subtleties of who they are, and tapping into that, instead of always what it is that they're saying. I'm curious, do you have any stories about that?
Yeah, I think so. There's chronic pain is what we were working on. And there was a lot of anger, and, you could just kind of see it. And when you're tapping with that person, polyvagal theory, Stephen Porges, I always explain this to clients. When you're shut down, dorsal vagal, you're pretty like freeze, you could say. And then you kind of move up that ladder. There's that sympathetic, that anger, that frustration, or whatever that's going to keep you alive and survive. And then there's that ventral vagal where you're connecting with other people. So I explain that to clients, but to see that with a client, they're saying, venting, oh, this is, bothering me. And they're kind of at that affect where they're like, I don't really care about this and that. And then we start tapping. Okay, let's just tap while you're there, right? You meet them where they're at. And then you can kind of see them move through that ladder, right? Because I always tell people you can't go from here to just ventral vagal, like you're good. Like sometimes when you're down at that dorsal vagal, you got to move up to that sympathetic, right? That fight or flight or whatever. And then ventral vagal. So when I'm tapping, it was like, oh, this, that. It's like, okay, let's just keep tapping, or even watch me tap. If you don't want to tap, that's fine. That's still going to be effective. So this person's tapping, and then they start complaining, venting, right? Then they start getting like fired up about something. And then they're like, oh, and then this bothered me and this bothered me. And I said, we kept tapping, and I said, this is, I hope and I have this like diagram just from my therapy office. I said, you're moving through that ladder. And then they started laughing as we kept going, and they tapped and they moved through that whole thing. And they said, holy crap, that was quick. Like I moved through all of that to get to a point where I could see things differently, or I could give myself more compassion, or I could laugh about it because it didn't have that same charge for them. And like I said, we were working on pain, right? They're like, oh, I didn't feel any pain at all. This person came in like, I can't walk. I can't, like, I need a cane. And in those moments that we were tapping, they were like, oh, yeah, I forgot about what we were working on. But they were able to work on those emotions and work through feeling all of that and working through that ladder. So how quickly it works, right? Because that's only one session, right? It wasn't even like 60 minutes. And it was just amazing.
That is so beautiful. I love the power of tapping, and I'm so excited that there's so many more practitioners using tapping for potential. I think that if that hasn't been a book yet, we got to write that.
Yeah.
Tapping into a potential. You guys heard it here first.
There we
So
go.
I love hearing your experiences of moving people through tapping. And also, there's this, what I find is that for one, a lot of people have never been heard before, or when they're tapping, things come up that, like, so many times I've had clients say, I've never said that out loud before, or I completely forgot that happened, or so they're bringing up stories, or they're bringing up emotions, or they're bringing up situations in their life that they weren't even aware that was bothering them until we moved into this session. And so I love watching my clients move from, oh, I have no self-love or no self-worth issues, and then like letting it rain. And bringing it to a point where they love themselves a little bit more. They have a little bit more compassion within themselves. The things that used to bother them no longer trigger them. And that's the whole point of tapping, is to release the electrical or the emotional charge to something from the past, right? So that no longer tethers you to that place in that time, in that situation. And you have that freedom, right? Emotional freedom from that charge that's been in your body, and you probably didn't even know it.
Yeah. And I think the pattern that I saw in my work, and I'm sure you see it too, is that when we process something, let's say traumatic from someone's childhood, it's like they can, once you tap through it, they're mad at themselves, or they're upset with themselves that they didn't do this. And so you tap through it. And every time I would get to a place with this client where they said, well, I actually feel a lot of compassion for that part of me. I actually want to give that part of me a hug. And that's when, you quickly realize, I already knew that in my work that I would try and help people validate themselves. Like in psychotherapy, I always said, like, that's a sign that you're healing when you're able to validate yourself and you're able to kind of be on your own side and your own cheerleader. And that's what I told people, like, this is my goal for you. Like, I want you to be able to do this for yourself, not just come and see me and get that validation. I want to teach you how to do that, because that's what's going to set you up for success your whole life. Because healing isn't like, I'm healed. There's levels to it, like there's always going to be stuff that comes up. And so I'm sure I'll ask you, actually, like, have you noticed that there's compassion at the end of, whatever you're tapping? And that is like the most beautiful part for me, where you're like, wow, that's every time we get here. And that's got to be the universal love that exists within us and around us. Like, I think that's like a taste of it. That's us coming back to that.
To me, like, compassion is a place where you love the places you judged, right? Or you love, it's the difference between judgment and discernment. And it's those, compassion to me is different from empathy, where it's like, I don't need to be in your shoes to, I don't need to feel it to have compassion. Like, I can have and compassion to me is unconditional love, right? Yeah. It's unconditional. So those places that we judged ourselves or we've judged others, all of a sudden doesn't have the same feel anymore. We don't have the same judgments. We don't have the same thoughts. We've opened up to a place of, I can love you there. And if I can love you there, I can love myself there too.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, awesome. I loved hearing about your experience, your journey of mastery through psychotherapy to totally quitting that, like getting out of the system, creating your own way, which is so important to me. And now you are going to be, you're writing a book that's going to be out this year. You're having a baby. And you plan on creating tapping groups in the future. Do you want to just give me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'd love, like, so my dream, my next, thing that I want to help people through is really be in the work with the women and starting tapping groups, transformational tapping groups. So, maybe like a 4 to 6 week commitment, being able to help people transform, because I know that in my journey, that was pivotal for me when I would join a space and we would tap for, I think it was 7 weeks that I did that with Mary Seiss, who's also going to be on my podcast this month. But yeah, so she was a pivotal person who helped guide me through that. So that's something that I want to be able to give back and provide that transformation for sensitive yet ambitious women.
Beautiful. And it is so needed in the world today as we are creating our own way. And so thank you so much, Jazz, for being on the Soul Prism podcast. And I can't wait to connect with you in the Take Up Space Summit and moving forward from here. Have a great day, everyone.